7:33, let's call this meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, welcome everybody to the regular meeting, July 14th regular meeting of the Marinwood CSD Board. We'll move on to item B, the agenda. Does any board member have any changes to the agenda this evening?
No.
Okay, may I have a motion to adopt?
Move to adopt.
Second?
Okay.
I have a comment about the agenda.
Okay, we have a first and a motion and a second. 1 minute, please. Go on.
I was just thinking with the last meeting that you had, which I did not attend, but with the last meeting that you had, and this is something I've already talked to the manager about, the agenda does not contain the number of, minutes from 7:45 to 8 o'clock or 8:15 to 8:20. It doesn't really show how many minutes each of the items on the agenda are going to take. And so I was just thinking to be more friendly towards residents who may be interested in coming to a meeting if they knew that 30 minutes was going to be spent talking about communications with residents, that you can't tell whether it's just gonna be a quick 2-minute deal or a 30-minute deal. 30-minute item seems to me very important, and it should, in my opinion, it should have been made more aware to residents that it was going to be a long discussion and perhaps resident input would be helpful. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Any further questions on the agenda this evening?
No.
All in favor of adopting the agenda as presented?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay, Director Shea has moved and Director Perry has seconded the motion, which has now been unanimously approved. So the agenda is adopted. Okay, moving on to the consent calendar, item C on the agenda. Does the board have any questions about the December 10th meeting minutes and or bills paid? Nothing from the board.
I do have a comment.
Does any member of the public have a comment?
Yes, thank you. Again, it kind of talks about that one item that took 30 minutes of discussion between the board members. In the draft minutes, it doesn't give any information really about what was discussed in those 30 minutes. And I was just going to suggest, and you'll understand why later in the meeting, but I was just going to suggest that something like this, it might be good to add a few sentences that might interest the public, interest residents, and you could say, oh, we talked about this, but we're gonna, get the residents' input, or we talked about this and we'd like some ideas from the residents, so we're going to further the discussions. I'm thinking that you need to, if you want to get residents to come to these meetings, I would think that you might want to put out some information that would make them interested. And the communications between residents and board members, this has been a topic that's been going on for 5 or 6 years. I remember when Mr. Horn put out that information, and I don't know whatever happened to it. But in any case, just putting some blurbs out there to make the meetings look more interesting, rather than we discussed communication, rather than we received a report. If there was something really interesting on the report, maybe you could say, oh, we talked about blah, 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 blah. In any case, I just thought, in some instances, you might want to increase the length of the minutes just to make it more interesting for residents.
Very good,
Thank
thank you.
you.
Mhm. Yes, Stephen?
First of all, happy 2020. Yeah, a couple of comments. First of all, on the draft minutes, there was public comment on the closed session. Why does the draft minutes say there were none? Are we accurately capturing what happened in the meeting? The video is, why are we writing down something that didn't happen? What's the purpose of written draft minutes if they are inaccurate? Please correct that. I did make a lot of comments on the Miller versus Marinwood case. You've spent a lot of money. You're on the eve of a settlement. You've spent a lot of legal resources, a lot of taxpayer resources. We're resolving something with elderly residents that could have been resolved through principled negotiation. They indicated early on. That's number one. So I'm going to publish that, and I am asking you right now to make sure that you have accurate records in the minutes. I spoke on the closed session, and that's very clear. None of you can deny it. Now the other thing is, there's a lot of expenses here. I noticed Bill Hansel charged another $1,200 to prepare the application, and it seems to me, because he's done a lot of work, and we have not really seen too many bills from the last time we had asked for this. We have no idea, the public has no idea how much his services are costing. I'm estimating it's close to $50,000. He has denied it to me, and he says I'm a liar and tells other people I'm a liar, etc. But the fact of the matter is, we do know how much he's charged, and we, the public, deserve to know that. The other thing we also need to know is how much you're investing in, how much is not being captured in this document. I mean, you're obviously want to be very careful with the information that you share with the public. So, request one, I believe it's your legal responsibility to have accurate meeting notes and not deceptive notes. So I'd like you to do that. Number two, I'd like you to disclose to the public how much this is going to cost. As you know, we're about ready to go to the Planning Commission to discuss the project over here, and no one in town, except you guys, knows how much this project is supposed is budgeted for, and I believe that's your responsibility. I have other things to say later on.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
You approved a lie.
The appropriate time to make comments about a closed session is prior to the closed session. You did indeed make comments about the closed session, but you did it in open time, okay?
I did not do it in open time, and there's no way I can comment on something that didn't occur. Usually what happens is that happens when you come out of meeting. We discuss X, and then there's a comment from the public on it. Okay? Now you can check other meetings. I have, and that's the way it's done, Jeff, and I hope that you follow the law this year.
I'll do my best. Thank you so much for your advice. Okay, we have a motion.
We have representatives here who understand the law.
We have a motion made by Director Green and seconded by Director Shea to approve the consent calendar as presented. Do I have, is there any further discussion? Okay, I'll move the question. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes unanimously, thank you. Okay, now we will move to item D, which is public comment, open time for items not on the agenda, for anyone in the public who wishes to directly address the board. Okay, Stephen, you were first, go ahead.
All right. We're neighbors. And it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. We're all neighbors. And we rely on you guys to be wise stewards of this district. And I don't know exactly what the motivations are. I'd like to think that they're pure motivations. But we have spent a tremendous amount of money on non-productive things in the district. We still have not addressed safety concerns. We have a major capital expense which is being hidden. We've got 2 CSD directors at least who will be profiting from this project, and we don't actually know what the reasons are or how much we're paying them. We really just don't know. Do you want to know who they are? Maybe you're personally profiting from them, but I think as representatives of the community, you have a obligation to do a better job of public outreach, which you claim to want to do, and transparency. And it's not really that hard. Maybe the question is why you feel like you can't be transparent. That's certainly a question I ask.
Okay, thank you. Linda?
Yeah. Now, this is my opinion, but it's also input I've heard, or things that I've observed from going to the commission meetings and the board meetings. And for many, many years, I've thought that the Park and Rec Commission should probably only meet 6 times a year, because with the Park and Rec Commission, a lot of the commissioners don't show up. And sometimes the meetings are canceled because they're not gonna have a quorum. Or and also, you've noticed in the last few years, there've been a lot of angst, a lot of agitation over not having representation on the Park and Rec Commission. So my suggestion is consider scheduling meetings 6 times a year, just for the Park and Rec. It's kind of similar with Fire Commission, but not so much. This year and last year, they've had a hard time finding extra commissioners, or commissioners to fill in the blanks. And there've been some discussions on, maybe strangling people to stay. But again, I was thinking maybe 8 times a year for Fire Commission meetings. And then I started thinking, well, heck, the board is kind of the same way. An awful lot of times when I'm at the board meetings, there's at least one board member missing. And it was really, really hard a year ago to find anybody who wanted to be on the board. And I think one person might have been strangled to be reappointed on the board. And then we had this other person who's not even here tonight just be appointed to the board. And it's like, why is it so hard? And this is part of the thing about communication, with residents. And I was just trying to figure out what can we do, or what could you do to get people more interested. And I know that these meetings sometimes are very, very boring, but sometimes they really, really have good topics to discuss. And going back to my earlier comments about minutes, if you could pick a couple of topics that are interesting to residents, add a little more verbiage, not only in the minutes, but I was also thinking in the Marinwood reviews, maybe we could have 1 or 2 board members each time a Marinwood review is put out, just to highlight some of the exciting, interesting, fun things that the community's been doing. And I'm not talking about the pool, I'm not talking about, some drinking event. I'm just talking about board. How do you get people to want to come to the board? Well, you have interesting topics, in my opinion. And how do they know about the interesting topics? Well, they don't unless you tell them somehow. And I know that's part of what you're trying to do. But I think one more way of getting residents interested in attending board meetings, and maybe by attending more board meetings or finding out more about what the commissions are doing, maybe these residents might say, oh, I didn't know they did that. Oh, that sounds good. That sounds like something I might be interested in. So, tease them or cajole them. Just try to get people interested by putting out more information, not only in the minutes on just 1 or 2 topics, maybe every meeting, but also in the Marinwood review.
Thank you,
Thanks.
appreciate it. Okay. I think that's all for the public. Okay, moving on to item E, district matters. First one is E1, that's the Board of Directors Communication, Public Outreach, and Potential Opportunities, which I will speak to. I know I'm not supposed to speak, but I'm going to speak to it anyway. My apologies. Anyway, okay. As we discussed in the last board meeting in December, and as Linda has alluded to several times this evening, there did seem to be a consensus on the board that we try to further our outreach to our public, and with several ideas and several notions. And that is to find out what's on their minds and what would interest them. To also let them know what we do, both as a board and also the commissions. What projects are underway or envisioned and that kind of thing. And to that end, what we did conclude is that it's very, probably the best avenue for us to do this is to have some meetings other than this one, where we could make ourselves available to the public and answer any questions or field any ideas that they may have. Given the fact that I don't think we've published yet a complete calendar for all of the annual events this year, although I understand they're about to be published. I pretty much looked at the first quarter this year, and I've come up with the following, not too difficult. We have, as was mentioned earlier, aside from this board meeting in a 2-week period, we're going to have a planning commission meeting that talks about the project in the Park Panhandle. Literally 2 weeks after that, we will have our next board meeting. So I would assume that there will be lots of opportunities to speak to the public about that project, irrespective of what direction it goes in at that planning commission meeting. After that, there's the Raise a Glass event, which is on February 29th. Now, through every fault of my own, I've made plans to be away on that day. I'm going to be out of the country. So I'm wondering, are any of the board members willing to spend an hour or 2 at that event to meet with the public?
I'm checking my calendar, sorry. February 29th, you said?
Yep.
That's a Saturday?
Saturday, I believe, isn't it, Luke?
Yep.
Yeah. It's leap day.
Do we
I'm sorry,
know
which
what
event
time?
is that?
This is the
2 to
Raise a
5.
Glass. It's a
Raise a-
wine.
oh, the wine drinking.
I am
Okay.
available.
Would you be willing to?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Anybody else? Need to think about it?
I mean, I would love to be there. I'm just not, it's the middle of the afternoon and I'll probably be at the office.
On a Saturday?
It's tax time.
Okay, well, keep, keep that in mind. I'd like it to be,
I'd
it would be nice if there were
see
two.
if I can do it, but yeah.
Yeah, and I apologize in advance for this. I booked a vacation and I completely lost sight of that fact. So I'll be coming back on that day.
Smart guy.
Yeah, great leadership, I know. I apologize. At any rate, the next opportunity, other than a board meeting here, we discussed the possibility of setting up a table at the Marinwood Market, you know, perhaps from 10 to noon or something like that on a Saturday. In March, the 21st and the 28th, there are opportunities. I will go talk to the management about that and see if there's any particular issues with regard to that, and I will certainly volunteer to be one of the people that sit there, okay? So that's what I've come up with so far. I appreciate some of the comments that were made about other ideas to meet. We are definitely too late for the Marinwood Review, which is going to, I believe, be published in a couple of weeks. And also that idea, while it was proposed at the last meeting, it does sort of throw a little wrench in the publication of the document itself. There's a particular number of pages that have to go in order to fold it up and print it properly and this and that. But we'll continue to think about that because some of your ideas have merit. So anyway, so we have at least one person for the 29th. I'll keep that open, and again, we have a board member missing this evening. I will reach out to her and see if she is also possibly willing to sit with Isabella on the 29th at the Raise a Glass event. And that's all I have for tonight. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
We also discussed the A-frame signs to.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
We also discussed the A-frame signs that would be potentially put out throughout the neighborhood, or at least two, to entice people to participate.
Or announce it,
in the
at
meeting,
least.
Or announce it.
Okay, I'll work on that as well. I can do some of this stuff before I take off on my vacation. But yeah, I'll do what I can to do that, and certainly any avenues that we have at our disposal to highlight that there will be such a table there with directors to listen and to communicate with our constituents. We will certainly put that out well ahead of time.
I also have a question about materials that the board envisions would be part of the table for the Raise a Glass. I would imagine a schedule of monthly meetings, just informing, handouts with dates and times for fire and park commission and board meetings. Should we also have handouts with bylaws for each commission, or is that not necessary?
No, I don't think that's necessary really, but I would say that that would be an opportunity to do what Linda suggests, and that is, some of the things that we're working on right now, what's on our minds.
That's a good idea.
That kind of thing.
Isabella, that's a great
yeah.
idea. You're talking about just a little handout that say, at some of the events, it says, this is some of the exciting things
Here's
that have
some of
been
the things we're
happening,
working
and
on.
join us for blah, blah, blah.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Yes.
Oh, that's great.
Thank you.
Definitely,
Thank you both.
definitely.
Stephen?
Yeah, well, Jeff, I'm going to take your word, what you say that you want to do outreach, but I would like an honest answer from you. There's 200 people that signed the petition to have a meeting on this Marinwood maintenance shed, and you dismissed it out of hand, saying that these people were uninformed. I'm not going to consider this at this time because they've been given wrong information. Now, this is without actually talking to anybody or making any attempt at outreach. Now you're talking about a meeting after the Planning Commission and hearing. And there again, I think you can say you want communication, but it doesn't appear from my perspective that you actually do want any kind of communication. What you want is you want people either you want people to approve the choices that you have made. And I earnestly, I think you're a good guy, I think all of you are good people, but if you really honestly want to lead, you have to lead, people have to know, you have to have followers. It's not just doing stuff and telling people about it. You can campaign anytime you want. However, if you're doing it in an official capacity, you know, election season's coming up, and we've got not only the tax issue, there's going to be board members being reelected. And you could set up a table any place you want, but I think to say this is an official meeting of the CSD is really kind of breaching an ethical boundary. I think certainly you could say, I'm Jeff Naylor, I'm your representative, I want to reach out to you and tell you what is on my mind. But to represent the CSD as a group, I think is, or any positions that are going to be voted upon, is a breach of ethics. Not to say that I don't want you to have that opportunity to speak to people. I think once you talk to more people you talk to, the better. I much prefer the idea of an annual meeting where everybody, the entire board, can be assembled and you talk to a large group of people, present your ideas, hey, this is what we've been doing, and allow that forum to happen instead of the, you know, catch one person going in the market and that sort of thing. But overall, I will have to say that I applaud the effort, but it really falls short, in my view, of really public outreach because of the controlled way that you're trying to attempt to do it.
Thank you. Any further discussion on item E1? Okay, we'll move on. We are now on item E2, which is to appoint board liaisons for the Fire, Park and Rec Commission and LAFCO for 2020. It's generally good policy to rotate these positions. These are board positions, board liaisons to different commissions and or organizations. And rather than have one person, you know, one board member sit on a commission in perpetuity, it makes sense for different board members to
It's in the
have that.
bylaws.
Pardon me?
It's already in the bylaws
Yes.
about alternating.
Yes, it is.
Yes, okay.
That's what I mean, good policy.
Just wanted to make sure you.
Good policy. Anyway, Fire Commission meets on the first Tuesday at 7 p.m. each month. 2008, Director Shea was our board appointee, and last year, 2019, Director Loyser. The P&R Commission meets on the fourth Tuesday at 7 p.m. In 2018 and 2019, Director Perry served as our liaison. I'm wondering if Director Green and Director Shea would be willing to serve on either one of these commissions in 2020.
Sure. Always.
Yes.
I can't do Tuesday nights, so it was a different night.
You can't do Tuesday nights.
Yeah, this is my one.
I see. Okay. Bill, you served on the Fire Commission last. Would you be willing to serve on the Park and Rec? Sure. As the liaison. Very good. Okay.
So
I will-
which is which? I'm sorry. I didn't-
Right, Director Shea is, has been voted in as our Park and Rec Board Liaison, and we're assigned. I don't, yes. And we are without one at this point in time. I would be reluctant to ask Director Perry for a third consecutive year. If we can get perhaps
Oh,
Sivan or myself, if necessary. To sit.
you got too much to do.
Yeah, I know,
If Sivan can help me.
I understand, but you've done your due diligence on that for the last 2 years, and we appreciate it, by the way.
When I spoke to Sivan today, she said she'd be willing to do it again if there was not somebody else who wanted to do it.
Great, well, let's confirm that, and if that's true, Director Oysterman will be our liaison to fire. Again. Which is, again, not particularly what we're trying to do here. We're trying to rotate that. Also, on occasion, it wouldn't hurt for me to show up at some of these meetings, even though I would just be a bystander, just to understand what's going on at the commission level. Okay, LAFCO. I will just make my own comment on this, and this is subject to whatever everyone else on the board and their opinion, but I believe in at least the past year and probably before that the district manager has been our primary liaison for LAFCO, and I don't feel any reason to change that. If and when LAFCO actually has something for us to discuss, I'm sure that he can bring a member in for those discussions if needed. Thoughts?
The meetings are usually during the day as well, right? Yeah, so that kind of limits our involvement opportunity.
I don't go to many of the meetings. I pay attention to the agendas and see what's on there, and I would typically, Bill has been keeping an eye on LAFCO with me the last couple of years. So
Oh, have you really?
Yeah.
I would forward him the agendas, and then I'm in communication with Jason, their executive officer, quite often, Jason Freed.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. So
You know, if
we
I'm
communicate
wrong.
a lot.
No, I mean,
Sorry.
in the last meeting they had in the evening, I think we all
Oh,
attended.
right, there was that one meeting, yes. Okay, well,
I love having Eric represent us, actually. I think he did a very good job, and
And-
it's
and as required, you know, if you need to call on Bill or any one of us for any purpose, as discussions with LAFCO hopefully continue, that would be just fine.
Great.
Awesome.
Okay?
I have a comment on that.
Yes, go ahead.
So LAFCO is set up to, for representatives, democratically elected representatives whose primary obligation is to the public. Now, Eric is a professional that works for us, and while I'm sure he tries his best to do good work. His, there's some self-interest there with any employee who is serving in what is an elected capacity. For example, if taxes or a merger could affect this district, maybe even his position. And so are you really, I guess what I'm saying is this is a job for an elected official, not a staff person. And to deny us that is, I think, abdicating your responsibility.
Thank you. I don't think we are, but I hear your words. I think that the board will be involved. I think on a month-to-month basis. Eric has done a good job of keeping in contact with LAFCO. If and when LAFCO is going to make a decision that has any impact at all on our district, I am sure a board member will be involved in those discussions. I know that for a fact. Okay, any further discussion on item E2? Okay, hearing none. Item E3, the district manager's report. Eric, would you like to take the lead?
Sure. Again, it's included in the package, a few kind of highlights that are in here. It's already been touched on, but January 27th, 2 weeks from yesterday, there will be a hearing with the Planning Commission regarding the park maintenance facility project. Things like staff reports and everything have not come out yet from the county. They have up until a week before the meeting to put those documents out, so I anticipate those will be coming out at that point in time. We will go in, obviously, present to the commission. It's a public meeting, so it's once more time and everything is set, which it has not been fully set yet, I will make sure you are all aware. You're certainly encouraged and welcome to attend. Bill Hansel and I will present to the Planning Commission the merits of the project. An interesting opportunity that we're working with San Rafael Fire Department on for an AmeriCorps grant. This would bring in a nice sized team of AmeriCorps workers from what's known as their National Civilian Community Corps. The city of San Rafael has had success with this grant. We are actually going to serve as the lead agent, so we feel that we would have a better chance of getting another round of funding and a potential team to come through here. But there's been a lot of great support from the administrative staff at the San Rafael Fire Department, and primarily their vegetation management crew who are helping us put this application together. So we've already submitted the initial piece of it and been invited to submit a full application, which is due in about another month. And then hopefully we'll have some word on that, and this team will come out and do a lot of vegetation management, fuel reduction programs, as well as community education programs. It's a win-win-win all the way around. We can get a lot more done with a team of 15 people at little to no cost than we could ever get without them done. So this would be a lot of handwork. A little update on the March election, just letting you know that both of our measures have been assigned as Measure G and Measure H. Those measures, again, strictly related to our appropriation limit, and are not proposing a new or change in the taxes in any way, shape, or form. And then I expect by next month we should have our full audit report, and that should be presented at the February meeting. I'm not anticipating any level of surprises with that, and it should be another good report.
Yes?
What time is the commission meeting on January 27th?
I don't know yet. One document on the county says 11:30, another document on the county says 1 p.m. So as soon as they can clarify that for me, I will let you know.
Bill, questions?
No,
Comments?
all straightforward.
Yeah.
I like the fire character.
Yeah, is there
The
a,
opportunity for that for the whole community.
absolutely. Is there a timeline with regard to grant, approval and award?
For this one,
Yeah.
it moves relatively quickly, and I think if I remember correct, the dates of actual implementation were late April through early July, like a 12-week program, so hopefully we will know shortly. They'd be housed as the former Station 53 over on Joseph Court. They'd be doing work with the city of San Rafael on some of their projects, but the majority of their work for this round would actually occur within the Marinwood properties as well. But there's just, without their help and their administrative help on the app and on getting the team and the housing and everything else, there's no way Marinwood could pull this off on our own. So this is a really good opportunity, a good collaboration with the city.
Good partnership. Thank you. Absolutely.
Just
Hold on
one,
1 second. Did anybody else have any questions from the board? Linda?
I just wanted to know when it was submitted, when the grant request was submitted.
The initial one was submitted last week, and we've already got confirmation and invited to submit a complete application that's not due until later next month.
You got confirmation that,
We are invited to submit a complete application. This was basically a pre-app, for what's known as a project concept form. That's what was submitted, that was approved, and we were invited to submit a complete application for this
with
opportunity.
more detail.
Yep.
And how long will that take before you submit it?
The due date is next month.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yes, Stephen?
Yeah, so I'll just go down. First on the departmental maintenance facility replacement project, notices went out. How many notices were mailed out roughly?
You mean by the county?
Whoever mailed out the notices.
The county mailed out the notices.
And how many was that?
I don't know yet, that's the county.
Okay, so I believe the law requires all residents within 500 feet of the parcel. You don't, I think, Eric, I think you want to maybe pay attention to this, because I live within 500 feet of the parcel, and I did not receive a notice. And nobody I know has received a notice. Maybe some people received a notice. But I think you want to make sure that you're following the law as it's
Well,
required.
again, that's county led, so I would take that up with the county, it's their
The county
responsibility.
does it? I
Yes.
thought it was the responsibility of the applicant.
No,
So, so the way I look at it, we've got a 14-acre site, and all the properties in that are around it deserve that notification. As far as the grant, that's great that we have a grant. Hopefully, this will be prioritized first with Upper Lucas Valley, that is at most at risk. But I don't know where it's going to be. Also, I'm concerned that they will do too much to the ecology of that land. I would certainly like to understand what they're going to be doing and where they're going to be doing it, because this has potential to be a good thing or maybe a bad thing. As far as the election goes, I guess congratulations. I didn't see that. I would have probably submitted an argument against, given the fact that our revenues are up and we've been spending a lot of money that I don't believe is justified. And what I don't see here is any initiative to improve public safety. And I think that I would ask that you make this a priority. There was an armed attempted rape here with a stolen handgun. The bathroom still does not lock at night. That's a potential source of crime. And we all have children. Some of us have experiences, either personally or people close to us. And by ignoring this, you're ignoring the needs of the community. You're concerned about safety, and you have, I forget his name, but I don't want to, whatever your title is, you have him here to, I guess, keep the peace here. And I wish, instead of investing in, what is a public forum, peaceable public forum, that you take serious the safety of our children. They're your children, they're your children, they're your children, they're your grandchildren, they're my children.
Thank you.
And the people that have experienced the kind of trauma that this young girl carry it through a lifetime. I know that.
Okay, thank you. Any other comment on the district manager report? Okay, moving on to item F, fire department matters. F1 is the draft minutes of the fire commission on January 7th. Any comments on the board on the fire commission meeting minutes?
I just would like to thank Commissioner Albano for his service.
Thank you. Bill, anything? No. Leah? Okay. All right, we'll move on then to item
Wait.
F.
Is this the draft
Oh,
minutes?
sorry.
I-
This is the meeting minutes of the fire commission.
Okay, sure.
You both have comments on that?
Yes, I do.
Oh, you do. Okay, Linda, I think you had your hand up first, go ahead.
Oh, okay. This kind of goes along with what Stephen was talking about earlier about the minutes. And I don't know, do I have an ego? Probably. But in the minutes, I was wondering why the district manager, oh, you wrote down Linda has an ego. Right on, thank you. I was wondering why the district manager didn't put in the draft minutes that I actually found a grand jury report from early last year that had a list of all the fire departments in Marin County and their status of whether or not they had sirens, LRADs, long range audio something or others, or other information, because we were talking about communicating in an emergency with Marinwood people. And so I had this list with every single fire department and whether or not they've looked into things, whether they have sirens, whether they are looking into LRAD, whether they decided, no, this was not a good idea, that was not a good idea. And I suggested that one or two of the fire departments could be talked to about why did they choose LRAD or why did they choose sirens, just to start us off. I mean, why reinvent the wheel? You know, let's start us up. And I passed the grand jury report, it was one page. I passed it around to everybody in the commission, and there's no mention of it. Okay. Nobody would have known that it was me that passed it out because you don't talk in the minutes about any kind of public who's attending. So I guess it's not my ego after all. But in any case, I was wondering if the person who wrote the minutes was biased against me and didn't include that, or maybe it was just not an important thing. Thanks.
Sure, thank you. Yes, Stephen?
So this dovetails with your desire for public involvement. You know, you look at these minutes and you go, what actually happened here? You know, you guys have the ability to record 100% of what's going on here. Just have the meeting here, turn on the camera. That would go a long way to transparency. Why isn't it happening? You know, what's the reason? Why? What's the secret? I mean, I'm not suggesting that bad things are going on. I'm suggesting that this district likes to operate as a closed club, and despite all the rhetoric that you want public outreach, it's not credible. It's not credible at all. And we have lots of examples of this. I agree. I mean, you know, the fire department is on the move, you know, with the wildland tax and that sort of thing. And we really should know. And I think you ought to look at it as an opportunity to gain public support, not something that if they catch us saying something wrong, we're surely cooked. I think there could be public support for sirens and additional taxes to clean up our open space. So I urge you to actually have written notes, have a videotape recorder, or at the very least an audio recorder of every single commission meeting, and be willing to stand up and for the actions taken or actions not taken.
Thank you. Okay. We'll move on. Item F2, Chief Officer Report and Activity Summary. That's Chief.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Brief report for you this evening. To start with, just want to update you on the fire chief's recruitment process. The application period closed yesterday. I reached out today to our HR department to see if I could get an update on how many applications were received and kind of a time frame moving forward, but didn't get a response, so I'll have an update for you next month on that. In December, Marinwood Engine Company staff assisted San Rafael fire inspectors with the inspections of all the school facilities in Marinwood. It's beneficial on multiple fronts to have fire inspectors and engine companies do fire inspections. It enables the firefighters to interact with the fire inspectors, they get to know each other. The fire inspectors are obviously very well versed in fire inspections so that they can instruct the engine company staff on things that they look for. And I think overall the process was very beneficial. Marinwood Engine Company staff participated in a tour of the new public safety facility during the month of December. All 3 shifts were able to participate as far as I know. Chief Gray, as part of his kind of his separation and pre-retirement duties, wanted to have as many people tour the facility as possible. Obviously, he was very much responsible for shepherding our new facilities, both the Public Safety Center and then both Station 52 and Station 57 in the Civic Center. So I think it was very special for him to host those tours, and I think people got a lot out of it. The new Public Safety Center is set to be completed this summer. The county is, well, not the county, but Fire Safe Marin is mailing out this flyer to residents in the high hazard fire zone areas throughout the county, including San Rafael and Marinwood. So it should be hitting mailboxes shortly in the Marinwood area. It's an excellent flyer. You can see it online at the Fire Safe Marin website as well. But that should be very informative and helpful to our residents how to prepare for wildfire. On December 13th, Engine 58 was first in on a working structure fire in an unoccupied dwelling on the Silvera Ranch property. The crew made a quick, fast stop, a very impressive stop on the fire. It was an interior fire. Appears to have started with some faulty wiring inside this structure. There were no injuries. Unfortunately, nobody was displaced because the dwelling wasn't being used for a residence. So, all good there. A shift, which consists of Captain Papanicolo, Engineer Jeff Smith, and firefighter paramedic William Kelly, recently provided hands-on CPR training, hands-only CPR training for Middle Creek school students. It was reported to me that approximately 180 students participated in the training. And the same crew also assisted with volunteer firefighter interviews, and there are currently 6 candidates in the process. And the start dates will be this month, pending medical clearance for the new volunteers. Captain Papanicolo and Volunteer Battalion Chief Stilson recently attended a firefighter recruitment and retention workshop in Palm Springs. It was a FEMA-funded program, which also included leadership and management training. The Christmas tree disposal program is wrapping up in the county, both here in Marinwood and San Rafael. Unfortunately, there have been no Christmas tree related fires in our communities this year, which is good news. But unfortunately, just before the Christmas holiday on December 22nd, we had a structure fire in Santa Benicia, which Engine 58 was basically first due with the first alarm assignment on. It was a working structure fire in a master bedroom. The occupant was home at the time, and unfortunately, both the occupant and her dog got out safely. And we were able to determine that the fire started with a improperly stored heating pad. So, yeah, the home was severely damaged, but again, there were no injuries, and fortunately, there were a lot of family in the area that could basically take care of this displaced resident while her home was being repaired. And then we've got the call activity, the monthly call activity, which I think is fairly routine in nature, nothing out of the ordinary, I think in numbers. And that concludes my report.
Very good, thank you, Steve. Questions from the board? Comments?
Chief, when we cover in Nevada, who covers here and how does that work?
So our county dispatch agency positions units around the county. If there's a working structure fire in Novato, for instance, and Agent 58 responds, units are moved northward from San Rafael. Possibly a San Rafael engine will cover the Marinwood station, and then units from Central Marin will start moving north towards San Rafael. So there are what we call must-fill stations in the county when there's a major incident, and so the county dispatch center ensures that those stations are filled.
So it's constantly
Yes,
moving
right.
puzzle.
Good question.
And typically what occurs when the incident is significant is a battalion chief from an unaffected area actually responds to comm center and then looks at the county map and moves units around to ensure that there is maximum coverage and balanced coverage around the county.
Thank you.
Okay. No further questions from the board? Questions or comments from the public? Stephen?
Yeah, so I won't be so crass as to ask Chief Sign-Up whether or not he applied. We'll find out soon enough. But in the event that he did, I just want to make some comments on Chief Gray as an excellent example of a professional that I think any employee working for the district could learn from. I think he was clear-headed and analytical, and he provided us with plenty of information. He was willing to discuss at whatever length necessary about things that were happening within his department. And should you be one of the candidates, I wish you the best of luck, and hopefully take heart that you've got a great example to follow. So that's all I want to say.
Thank you. Well, what do you think? Should we let her? Linda?
Okay, I forgot that I made this comment at the fire commission meeting about Chief Sinnott. I've known him for years because I go to the San Rafael Fire Commission meetings and I see him all the time. Stephen talks about Chief Gray. This is another Chief Gray as far as the attitudes, the aptitudes, the experience, the intelligence, the calmness, the kindness, the compassion. I mean, right now we are in the best of all places, having the previous chief leaving. And I just want to make sure I don't know if any of you guys have known Chief Sinnott, but he's terrific and he's just as great, younger, a little bit younger, but just as great as Chief Gray.
Thank you, Linda. Here. Okay. Okay, next fire commission meeting is scheduled for February 4th. And we will move on to park and recreation matters. There was no P&R commission meeting in December, so therefore there are no minutes to report. Item G1 is the park and rec maintenance report.
Thank you. Well, just after our last meeting, we had our Winterfest, annual Winterfest open house holiday event that went really well. We had, I think, the most authentic Santa Claus I've ever seen at any event anywhere, so I was happy that he made the stop here, and my boys were very excited to see him as well. It was a great event. We had a lot of great staff keeping the energy up, and I was very pleased with how it went. Very well attended, and it was just a great way to bring in the holidays. Our next special event, as Jeff mentioned earlier, will be our 10th annual Raise a Glass wine tasting, winter wine tasting, on Saturday, February 29th. We have, I believe, 11 wineries attending. We've got a great band that's been playing the last couple of years, Bistro Mustache, doing some gypsy jazz and French hot club music. And we're looking forward to that. It's going to be a great time, and hope everyone can make it out for that. The staff has been busy this last few weeks, finishing touches on the Marina Review, which has gone to print. And we're looking forward to having the catalog coming out. And I believe our summer program registration will be opening up the first week of March, but that will be announced very shortly officially. And we have just been getting everything ready to be opening up registration, taking pool memberships, summer camp registration. That'll all start in the coming weeks, and we're doing a lot of prep to get ready for that. Today, Robin and Stephanie both attended the California Parks and Recreation Society District 1 training / mini seminar. They were with a bunch of other Parks and Rec staff from Marin County and surrounding counties, dealing with topics on staff retention and recruitment and some other things involving summer programming and operations. And they reported they got some good tips, got some good discussion with some of their colleagues, and hopefully we'll implement some of those ideas moving forward to keep our staff safe and keep them coming back each season. So on the parks and maintenance side of things, the staff has been busy keeping the drains and culverts clear. We've been had a lot of trees come down this winter. Thankfully, the rain has been intermittent. One day on, a few days off, and it's made life a lot easier than the last couple of years where we've had just torrential downpour days and days in a row. So it's been a little bit more manageable this season. But we've had to remove some trees from the creek and from some trails, and the staff have been busy taking care of that. Not too much damage so far, thankfully. Some of the projects going on right now include we extended the rail fence in the park a little bit this last few weeks, planted some new hedges in the mini park to fill some of the gaps that were there, and we've been cleaning up some of the pruning and landscaping around the community center and the pool. Our next focus is going to be getting the pool ready for the new season, so we're getting things painted and cleaned, doing our annual equipment inspection in the pump house to make sure everything's ready to go. And we'll be getting the pumps up to speed and the heaters turned on in about a month, getting ready for the new season. So a lot of work going on with the pool right now to get ready for that. Do you have any questions?
Bill? As far as the pool is going, you won't know everything's in great working condition until we start things up, right?
Well, this last few years we have changed our winterization protocol where we actually do keep the pumps running at very low speed so that it's better, so we don't have to find out, cross our fingers when we turn it on after 4 months. So everything is operating. The pool is minimally treated just to keep algae at bay, and so we have 2 working, relatively new heaters. So we'll be firing those up just to test them out this week. But everything seems to be working order. We're just going through to clean things up and make sure everything's in tip top. But yeah, no real concerns that we foresee.
Okay, very good. With regard to the extension of the railing, does this have anything to do with any further degradation in the creek bed?
So that's a good question. We have seen some erosion in the creek over the last several years around the main park and playground, and some of the area where the park ends, the cliff there, the bluff, has been getting deceivingly steep where kids chasing balls or people walking their dogs. It's sort of it's a pretty sheer drop off in some areas, it's making us a little bit nervous. So the fence was partly to sort of a visual barrier to keep people from getting too close to areas that are not obvious they're going to be a drop off. We have had continued erosion, and I actually had John from the straw program come out with a colleague of his who's an erosion specialist a few months ago. I think I put it in my report, but gave some recommendations for once the rainy season ends for some plantings that we can do to sort of help hold on to as much land as we can. But the creek continues to do what it does, and there's been some erosion in that area.
You mentioned children. Is a fence enough? Is signage necessary? I mean, what do we do about a kid that actually ignores everything, including the barrier, hops it, and, Are there dangers?
Yeah, well, I think that's a good question. We do have some temporary signage up in one area that's particularly deceivingly steep, and I've got a more permanent sign that's been ordered that'll be put up soon in that spot. The kids do go up and down the creek and down the banks, and it's not necessarily going to be a fatal fall or anything like that. We're trying to keep people to know, hey, there is a cliff here, there is a ledge, be careful, and we advise you not to go past that, but people are going to go,
Yeah, I understand, it's sort of a no-win situation, but then again, just from a risk mitigation standpoint, making sure people have been warned.
Exactly, yeah. So there are signs up currently in the spots that are especially that we can deem hazardous, and there will be some permanent signs going very soon.
Very good, thank you. Nothing further from the board? Public, Stephen.
Let's see, I guess, I'm just going to go down the list. Now, we have a rule in the park against alcoholic beverages. Now we're doing a raise the glass event, that's fine. I guess some people really like to drink and need an event to go to do it. But even as I was coming in here, I don't know who they were or what the occasion was. They're enjoying a bottle of wine right in our lobby, which I think is completely inappropriate for a family facility. We do actually have prohibition against this. We also have prohibition against the activity that takes place weekly at the pit, the horseshoe pit. Now, I'm not a blue nose. I think it's fine to have a drink every once in a while, but I think it does need to be controlled. And we are now at the point where it's not being controlled well. Because we've had incidents that, we described last April's incident was the perpetrator said he had too much to drink even though he wasn't of legal age. I mean, how does that even happen? And why isn't every one of you as outraged as I am about this and want to do something proactive? You have the tools. You've actually already have the rules. You're not enforcing the rules. I don't like encouraging alcohol use, and most especially alcohol use in this park. And I'm asking you to take proactive steps. You're worried about kids falling down a ravine. Well, I'm worried about alcohol and the issues of liability that creates. We are actually negligent when we allow this activity to occur. What if, say, this party out here was drinking and fell down and said, hey, you didn't stop me drinking, I'm going to sue you? I think they might actually have a case. Professional development, I'm happy that Robin and Stephanie are meeting with some park and rec people. Although most of our land is actually open space, and I've made this request in the past, and I really would like to see it. I'd like to see staff trained in proper trail management. As you know, we're settling with the Millers because there was an erosion problem on a heavily used trail. Well, maybe that's something we could have avoided by proper maintenance. I don't know. But it certainly would have strengthened our hand in whatever negotiations you're involved with now. I do have some kind of background in this. I was trained in environmental science and served for a while as an interpretive naturalist back east. Appalachian Mountain Club, Jeff, you're probably familiar with it. So I know a little bit about trail maintenance, and I got to say, it continues to astound me
the amount of abuse that the staff is taken on in our natural portions of our park. You have two people here tonight, me and Linda, who have broken bones recently, and neither one of us did it in the park, thank God, but the park serves as our recreation and rehabilitation resource, and when you ignore things like safety railings, like benches for people to rest, you're really ignoring the needs of a large segment of the population. I believe we could probably even get grant money to assist us with these improvements. But unfortunately, there seems not to be interest in that. And once again, I scratch my head. What are you guys doing? Why aren't you taking care of the parks? Why aren't you taking care of the open space? We've got a beautiful community here, and all it needs is proper care. And proper care really is not complicated or labor intensive. It's actually just awareness of what to do and what not to do. And there doesn't seem to be much interest. Just drive the truck up to empty the trash, and that's about all the maintenance that we do. And it's a shame because
Okay, thank you.
we have
Appreciate your
much
comment.
more to do here. Well,
Okay.
thank you, Jeff. Please don't interrupt me like that. That's kind of rude. I don't interrupt you, and I wish you'd take a different approach to your.
If you would please conclude your comments. Thank you.
That's good. Yeah, I'm concluding it, but that's the proper way to address that issue. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Okay, next Park and Rec Commission meeting will be January 28th. Okay, moving on to item H, board member items of interest, requests for future agenda items. Does the board have any items of interest that they would like to mention this evening? None of you are interested?
Interesting.
Oh my God, okay. No interest at all from the board?
Ooh,
Okay,
interest, I'm sorry.
how about, let me finish with the board, please. Thank you.
Okay, but you're finished.
How about future agenda items? Nothing come to mind? Okay. Linda?
This particular item, I know it used to say items of interest. And then it says board member items of interest, which I agree with because we had our time and opened.
Mhm.
But the request for future agenda items, can the public ask? We used to be able to ask for a future agenda item.
I believe you can.
Okay, thank you. So I would like to ask, and just a teensy bit of background, because I already asked the district manager about a few of the changes that were made to the agenda, and I know the minutes, also why the minutes have been eliminated. I believe, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was the district manager and Ms. Green, the previous president, one of the previous presidents of the board, made some of these decisions, and I didn't know if any of the other board members should have been involved or would have liked to have been involved, because I think some of the residents, me, would have liked to at least given you a little input on the agenda items and the minutes. And I know you know I love detail, okay? That's one thing. But it seems to me that the names of the attendees just suddenly stopped including residents. Oh, Stephen and Linda. Why? And you don't have to answer, you won't answer, I know, but why did you decide not to show that Linda attended the meetings? I just think it's kind of a, who is she? We don't want to talk about her. No, she wasn't there. No, and in the comments with the minutes, it says, we got a comment from somebody in the audience or whatever it says. So that's one thing. The other thing is, why are the minutes so abbreviated so that we have absolutely no idea what's going on? And that, again, it refers to one of the other things I said earlier about jazzing up the minutes in maybe one or two items that might be of interest to residents. But I don't know if the whole board was involved in any of this decision-making. Thank you.
May I respond?
Sure.
Linda, I'd like to respond to your comment.
Sure.
I was involved in revising the minutes, the project. It was a multi-meeting project where several drafts were revised and discussed by the board and ultimately voted on by the entirety of the board and unanimously approved.
Oh, was it in a board meeting?
Yes, the minutes have been revised in accordance with Rosenberg Rules of Order. Also, according to this publication, public members do not need to be listed in the minutes. Timing of the agenda does not have to be included. It's almost discouraged to be included because then it implies that the discussion may not start before that time. And that's
No.
why many, public agencies do not list the time
Not if you
of
look at the Board of
Please don't
Supervisors.
interrupt me and don't speak over me. Finally, the meeting minutes format was revised because of the subjectivity that was continuously attacked by yours very truly and Mr. Nestle. So that's why we tried to make it as objective and as content specific as possible. Thank you.
But there's nothing in the minutes.
Are you changing the last time's minutes? Because you didn't actually, you actually went out of your way to not tell the truth.
Maybe I answer that as well. Just to answer your concern about it, according to the agenda of last meeting, the public comment on closed session was supposed to take place before the
What time
actual
was it
closed
supposed to
session.
take?
Please don't interrupt me when I'm speaking.
You know, respect works both ways, and I've been very respectful to you. However, when you're doing this, Isabella, it's not respectful. Okay.
Point of order.
Yeah,
Thank you.
go ahead.
I
Move to adjourn.
No, I have something to say.
I
I really actually think that you misquoted Rosenberg's rules. Certainly the ethics and the spirit of Rosenberg's has been violated. You guys continually find ways to, slice it so you are not transparent. As far as the future agenda items, I would like you guys to really have some ethical training and discuss what you've learned in public at the ethics complaining, ethics training. I think public outreach is great. I'd like to see more of it, but it has to be honest public outreach. And we have the safety issues that you're not addressing. I'd like to see a meeting on that, and I'd like to see a meeting on open space and proper care of the district beyond the rec program here. That's all I have to say. I hope it wasn't too painful for you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Item I.
So moved.
Second.
I didn't even ask. Okay. This meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much for your attendance.